Here's a wild fact. Did you know that your core is involved in every movement you make? From tying your shoelaces, to going for a run, to working at your laptop, to picking up your cat, your dog, your kids, your grandkids. Yet most people train their core the wrong way. Hang on, stick around, and in just a few minutes, I will show you how to feel, find, and activate your core in 4 steps. Okay, so you're not going to need any equipment apart from a mat. So let's start with the first step. Lie on your back. I want you to lie on your back, have your feet flat on the floor, shoulders down and relaxed. I want you to take your fingertips, put them on your hip bones, find your hip bones. Take your thumbs, find the bottom of your rib cage. Okay, and so now we're going to try and close the gap between your hip bones and your rib cage. How do we do that? Tilt your pelvis. So the first step is a pelvic tilt. So we're going to go down, tilt, and let's just release. So the first step, 1. So think about closing the gap between your hip bones and the bottom of your rib cage. So take a nice deep breath in, and then breathe out and press down. Now what I often say to my clients is, imagine you have a €50 note. I don't have a €50 note on me, so I'm going to put this underneath my back here. And so here, 1, tilt, and imagine that €50 note it can't escape. If your back is arched away from the mat, it's going to come out easily. Right, that is step 1, pelvic tilt. First cue, tilt. Step 2, so 1, tilt. Press your lower back in towards the ground by tilting your pelvis. Remember that €50 note or £50 note or $50 note, wherever you are. Step 2, pelvic floor. Step 2, the cue is lift. Now, I want you to imagine your pelvic floor, so it's like a crane. You're lifting up. So there's lots of different ways you can think about this. Think about a zip, coming from the back to the front, zipping up and holding. Really important, holding to about 30%, like any muscle. If you hold really, really tightly, it's going to fatigue really quickly. So step 1, tilt. Step 2, let's activate your pelvic floor. Think about lifting up and holding about 30%, not really tight. Okay. Step 3, so 1, tilt. 2, lift. 3, is I want you to imagine you're closing your rib cage down towards the mat. You're trying to draw your ribs like you're drawing a pair of curtains. You're closing them down. The opposite is flaring. Now when you flare, look, your back comes off and you've lost your €50 note. So 1, tilt, €50 note. 2, lift, think of the crane. 3, closing your rib cage down towards the mat. 4, and the final part of the puzzle, which is so often I see people just do this first. They just say, pull your belly button in. By pulling your belly button in, none of the other muscles are activating. So we are going to the 4th and final cue is float. Float your belly button down towards the mat. Let's go over. 1, tilt. Tilt your pelvis. 2, lift your pelvic floor, 30%. 3, close your rib cage down. And the 4th one, float your belly button down towards the ground. I should also add maybe a 5th of like relaxing your neck and relaxing your jaw. It's going to take a little bit of practice, okay? Like anything, it takes a little bit of practice. We're not looking for perfection, we're looking for progress. But done in this order, you're activating your deep core stabilizing muscles, your transverse abdominis, which is really, really important, especially if you tend to have lower back pain. So it's thinking about the tilting your pelvis to activate your deep core stabilizing muscles, lifting your pelvic floor, which is also part of your core, closing your rib cage to activate all those really important oblique muscles which stabilize your spine. And then the 4th and the final part is floating your belly button, which activates your rectus abdominis, your 6-pack muscle, which is a very dominant muscle. So if you just pull that muscle in first, All the others are going, right, I'm on holiday, I'm not doing anything. Okay, so let's just finish with a little bit of practice. So yet again, back down on the mat. Cues, are you ready? Are you ready? So first of all, just settle down into the mat. So 1, tilt, pelvic tilt. Think of that €50 note. So tilting your pelvis, gently pressing your back down towards the mat. 2, think of the crane, lifting your pelvic floor up and holding 30%. 3, closing your ribs, relaxing your jaw. 4, float, just float your belly button down towards the mat. Right, keeping all of that contained and engaged, I want you to bring one knee up, bring the other knee up. Now often what will happen, your lower back's going to come off the ground. So let's run through again, keeping these knees here. If this feels too much, you can keep your feet down on the ground, okay? So, but otherwise bring both knees up in a 90 degrees. So 1, tilt. 2, lifting your pelvic floor. 3, close the ribs. 4, float. Have your hands down by your sides, looking up at the ceiling. And we're going to tap down, tap toes. So tap. Now, I want you to really focus on those 4 key steps. So what will happen when you start to tire, your lower back will pop off the ground. So think about tilting the pelvis. Think about lifting your pelvic floor, closing your ribs down, and floating your belly button down towards the floor. Right, let's do 2 more. 1, 2. Bring your knees in, rock a little bit side to side. Now you can repeat what I've just done. I'm going to just take it up a level now. Let's go over it again. I know it's repetition, repetition, repetition. Do it enough, then you just won't have to think about it. So 1, tilt the pelvis. 2, think of that €50 note. Crane, lifting your pelvic floor. 3, close your rib cage down. 4, float your belly button down. Bring the knees up. 1, 2. Now place your hand in with your fingertips behind your head, gently peeling up. Now really closing your rib cage down. Look between your thighs and let's go. Now I want you to air your armpits. It's a technical term that. Elbows wide, jaw relaxed. Lower back, press down towards the mat. Slow. Now remember, if you want, you can have 1 foot down. Here. Really closing these ribs down. Let's have 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring your knees in, rock a little bit side to side. And there is how to find your core in 4 steps. I'm not saying easy steps, but there are 4 steps. With practice, they will become easier. What's your biggest challenge with core workouts? Let me know below. Oh, and also check out this upper body workout. See you next time.